All right, Tate, let's just get this out there right off the bat that you and I are zombies right now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's the way to put it. If you notice, if you're wondering why we're not excited about the Virginia loss, first of all, Tate and I wanted Virginia to do well. I don't think we made any bones about that. Kyle Guy was our guy all year, Tate.
Yeah, he was a part of his segment, so it meant something to us to have Kyle Guy
We made
do
Kyle
well
Guy
in the
who he
tournament.
was.
Yeah,
people
we
had
made
no
him
idea.
the face.
Would Virginia be ranked number 1 without us? Who's to say? But also, we both woke up today just exhausted. We've been doing these podcasts. We've been watching all these games. I connected the dots that this was my first March Madness in my 30s, and I had like a little bit of a crisis this morning that it kicked my ass. Day one did, and I was like out of commission basically all day today. The good news was that there wasn't a lot of madness throughout the day. It was like I wasn't really missing anything. I felt like I was barely paying attention to some of these games because I was like so tired from yesterday. And first of all, like the Providence game, Texas A&M, garbage game. Every time you and I were the one good game was Marshall beating Wichita State. That
John
was
Elmore,
exciting.
yes.
John Elmore,
13-4
you
special.
called the white James Harden.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he lived up to it.
But you and I kept looking at each other like, man, what a boring day. Like even the games that were close were just like shitty basketball. Nevada, Texas, overtime was awesome, but like up until that point, it was just Texas shooting themselves in the foot. Just a lot of shitty basketball today. And we said, when's the madness coming? It came tonight, Tate. Virginia lost. What is the first? Where do we start with this?
First thought is this is back-to-back days. And we said the same thing in the Thursday, day one. We were like, today it's sort of playing out like you would expect, but you expect more things to happen. We get Arizona-Buffalo late at night.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, that's the big news. This is going to be the biggest upset of the tournament. People were saying it was a bigger upset than, some 215s that you may remember. Middle Tennessee State beating Michigan State.
I felt that way, yeah.
Mercer beating Duke. Everyone was saying that it was a bigger upset than that. And then we get to this game. We get to UMBC. Coached by Ryan Odom, son of Dave Odom, legendary coach in the Carolinas, Dave Odom. My dad used to work for Dave Odom, a great man. Ryan Odom, also a great man. Tony Bennett is a good guy.
Very good guy tonight. Very gracious in defeat. Tony Bennett is you guys are just going to have to tune into the Duffies to see who wins Good Guy of the Year because we have a lot of candidates.
More and more just keep getting added.
So I guess I want to start here that a lot of people will point to this game and say this is just further proof that Virginia chokes in the NCAA tournament. They choke every year. We all know that their offense isn't good enough to ever win an NCAA tournament. You and I both disagree with that notion because, I mean, first of all, what's the difference between playing UMBC in an NCAA tournament game? Like, what's so special about that game that's different than – you're telling me, like, this is a harder environment for them to play in than the ACC? Because need I remind people, Virginia had, like, one of the greatest ACC teams of all time this year. They were very, very close to going undefeated in the ACC, and the ACC put like 9 teams in the NCAA tournament.
And the only game that they lost was to Virginia Tech at home, a game that they were completely in control of.
Right.
And Virginia Tech just got hot at the end and they get a win.
So I want to debunk this theory or this idea that Virginia's just not built for the NCAA tournament. That's not why they lost. They didn't lose to UMBC because they weren't built for the tournament. They lost because they got their asses absolutely handed to them. And if you actually paid attention to Virginia basketball, and this is probably too much analysis for what you and I are used to giving on this program.
Yeah, we're usually having fun, but right now we have to be serious.
But Virginia's pack line defense, they three-pointers are always the kryptonite. They pack in. For those who don't know, you wonder like what Virginia's style of play is. They put the guy guarding the ball. They have him guard the ball wherever it is, pretty much. The other 4 defenders pack in tight into the paint to prevent driving lanes. That's like their style of defense. Now, in packing in and preventing the driving lanes, what you're doing is You've collapsed. You're susceptible to long closeouts.
And you play the percentages.
You're like, there's no way they're just going to keep hitting threes on us. UMBC was hitting threes. So they're hitting threes. Virginia starts to freak out. They start closing out longer. UMBC starts dicing up their defense. And then Virginia panics. Everything just snowballs on top of itself, and that's how we ended up where we were. I mean, I don't know. This was just like a perfect storm of if you were going to write a recipe. If you would have told me, I certainly would have never expected Virginia to lose to a 16 seed. But if you would have told me like Virginia suffered a massive, embarrassing, humiliating loss, how do you think it happened, Mark? I would say, well, they probably, like the team probably hit a bunch of threes to start, and then they freaked out and tried to play from behind, and they're not built to do that.
Or you would say the team probably shot 50% or better from three, and Virginia probably shot 25% or less from three. And that's exactly what happened. UMBC was 12 of 24 from three. Virginia was 18%. But I want to talk about the logic behind Virginia's, this style of play. Even Barkley after the game, he's like, you can't play the way Virginia plays with the three-point line because it's just too much of a variance. If a team gets hot, you can't win. But the reason that I say you can, and the reason why I think Virginia lost in saying all this is you have to, in the tournament, you have to be able to adjust. You have to be able to deviate from the plan. The whole point of Tony Bennett's, this whole system with Virginia is like, we have a plan. It's the pack line. This is what we do. But when they got down by 14 or 15, they inherently deviated from the plan because they rushed everything on offense. Because patience is key on offense. Not only do you have to play great defense to play Tony Bennett's style, but you have to be patient. You have to play the clock. And in the times in this game when they got down, they started to rush. They started to force it. You could see that they obviously understood that they did not have the possessions that they needed to come back in this game. So they started to – Ty Jerome is taking threes. Isaiah Wilkins is taking threes. It's just like there's one dribble and they're pulling up from three. And – my question to you is, if you're Tony Bennett and you see your team, obviously on offense, they're just unraveling, and on defense, it's not quite going their way because they're getting sprayed by everybody.
Right.
Do you just say, we got to get away from what we're doing right now? We just have to press. Like, Devin, you're pressing right now. Like, I know this is not what we do, but there had to be some other wrinkle to throw into this.
I would actually argue maybe the opposite, that I felt like Virginia didn't stick to their plan, and ideally I would have liked for Virginia to say, we won 31 games. We went 31-3. They lost like one game since Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. I don't remember when the West Virginia loss happened early in the year, but it was like very early in the year. They lost one game.
December, I think.
Yeah, so they lose one game earlier in the year to West Virginia, and then the only other game they lose is in overtime. Playing a certain way got them this far. And like you said, their whole defense is predicated on the percentages. And you're saying like UMBC is going to come out hot. They're going to hit threes. That's fine. Let them do that. They can't possibly keep this pace going. And I guess I would have liked to have seen them just kind of stick to the plan more and just keep, like in a weird way, sort of keep giving UMBC the threes because they didn't know what to give them. Like UMBC, I'm going to just start calling them Baltimore because UMBC is a mouthful. Mm-hmm. Baltimore starts hitting all these threes, and Virginia at that point, like, because Virginia's defense is like, we will give you threes. We're going to give you, semi-contested threes all night long. So Baltimore starts hitting them, and then suddenly Virginia doesn't know what to are we trying to take away the threes? Are we trying to take away the drives? What are we doing? And they get like flustered and they take away nothing. And I think for me, I wish they just would have like stuck to the plan and said, okay, we're down 15 even. If we just stick to this, the shots are going to stop falling for them. They're going to start falling for us. We don't need to rush shots. You can't hit a 15-point shot on offense. It felt like, Ty Jerome was like, if I hit this, it's going to be worth 15. That's not how it works, Ty. Just get the points, And everything snowballed. The psychology of it all, like you could tell the arena's rallying behind the 16.
It was quiet. I mean, this is in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right.
I mean, it's 20 minutes away from Charlottesville, right?
Mm-hmm. It's basically the same town. Aren't they neighboring cities?
Just drive to Charlotte, Charlottesville, right?
But you could tell Virginia's players are like, we understand what's happening right now.
I had friends in the crowd in Charlotte, and they're texting me during this game. They said it's eerie how quiet it is.
Like a Mike Wilbon situation. Like I was at that game.
Yeah. Like we had friends in the building that are saying, it feels weird for Virginia to be playing right now, and you can feel it as a player when you feel a hush where people are just kind of shocked. And they're I mean, even Tony Bennett, he was doing the Sean Miller thing, which we saw against Buffalo, which is like the kind of nervous chuckle, like what the hell is happening right now? And as soon as that started to sink in, you could see there was a ripple effect amongst the rest of the players.
So
even Nigel Johnson, all those guys coming in.
My question for everyone who believes that Virginia is not built for the NCAA tournament, like I'm willing to listen to that. I certainly think there's credible, theories to that point. I think, like you said, once they get behind, they're not built to come back from a huge deficit.
I said it was like option football.
Yeah.
It's like if you're Georgia Tech and Paul Johnson and you're behind, you're not going to be able to throw your way back into the football game. It's pretty much over.
I've always hated. I appreciate their offense and we like their style of play, but you also identify that like the fewer possessions you have in a game, the less. Like North Carolina plays up and down. If you're going to pull up an upset over North Carolina, you probably have to hit like 10 shots. You usually don't. But if you're going to upset Virginia, you probably have to hit like 5, just because, I don't know, I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass. But that sort of theory, I think there was that idea was credible to me. The part that I don't understand is like what about playing Baltimore in the first round of the NCAA tournament is just like a different thing. Like than playing all this ACC teams. That's what I don't understand, like how that makes Virginia different. How does that make them a bad NCAA tournament? Like, you think they went into this game differently than they played Duke? Other than the psychology part, they're like the exact same team. Like I don't think there's anything about the NCAA tournament that says, okay, now it doesn't work. It's been working all year against like some of the best teams in the country. They beat Duke in Cameron Indoor Stadium. Mm-hmm. They beat North Carolina multiple times. Mm-hmm. They go 18 or was it 16-1, 17-1, whatever it was.
17-1.
17-1 in the ACC in one of the best conferences in college basketball. So what is it about suddenly playing in an NCAA tournament that makes it different? I know that's the part that I don't understand when the people say that. Like, I don't think it had anything to do with the NCAA tournament. I think it has to do with Baltimore just raining threes on them and then panicking. The psychology of the NCAA tournament certainly played a part, I think. But like as far as the like there's this certain brand of basketball that only works in the NCAA tournament. I don't think that's true. I think we've proven that through the years, like the different kind of champions we have, different teams go to the Final Four. There's all these different makeups that work. So I don't know.
And people want to put Tony Bennett down. I mean, that's the whole point. There's like this weird backlash to everything that Virginia does, even when they do win the ACC by 4 games, even when they do win the ACC tournament. Everyone's like, well, just wait in the tournament. You're going to see the real Virginia.
Right.
And now everyone seems vindicated and validated with that outlook. But the thing that happened tonight, and which I thought was so impressive for UMBC, with Lyles and these guys on their team, when they got up, they played with poise.
Right.
And you know, they didn't play like a 16 seed. They played as if they expected to beat Virginia. And I know at halftime they were tied at 21, and they went in and they're like, we're playing pretty bad right now, and we're somehow tied in this basketball game. And Virginia's probably going to the locker room and saying, we're playing pretty bad right now. We can't make any shots, but we got them right where we want them. You know, we're going to lock down in the second half. But for whatever reason, they came out and played free. They didn't seem like to have a care in the world. And Virginia came out, and they seemed concerned with every shot they took. Every single person tried to be a hero. Yeah. You know, Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome, Devin Hall. I mean, he goes 0 for 6 from 3. I didn't even know. I didn't even know he went 0 for 6. 1 for 9 from the field. Every single shot he took seemed forced. And they kept running the same little rub screens where they were trying to get the same 3-point shot for those guys to get them going. And it just continued to spiral as they tried every single time to get these guys in the game.
That's how Virginia's offense is built. Is they have to hit those threes, because once you start hitting those threes, guys cheat out. When Kyle Guy comes off a screen, the help defender cheats out. Big man Jack Salt slips the screen. Wilkins slips the screen. They get dunks. Like, if they're not hitting those threes, their offense is screwed. And it basically everything that could have I don't need to say this. It's pretty obvious if you watch the game, but everything that could have possibly gone wrong for Virginia did. And yeah, I think the idea that the NCAA tournament is that Virginia's not built for the NCAA tournament. I totally buy into the psychology part. There's no question about that. That Virginia was rattled, they panicked, all that sort of stuff. But man, this was and we should bring up DeAndre Hunter, by the way. I'm not saying he makes the huge difference, but
I think he does.
I think he actually does. I think people look at the score and they say it's a 20-point margin. But again, like, this was like a snowball effect that, like, if DeAndre Hunter is guarding
Lyles.
Lyles.
Let's say in this situation, hypothetical, and I know we say all this, and this probably is gut-wrenching to a Virginia fan that's hearing this, because I know that they probably feel the same way about having a guy like Hunter be able to come into the game. But to be able to put Hunter in and say, hey, 6'7" DeAndre Hunter, you're going to guard Lyles right now, and you're going to shut him down. And basically, they had this weird situation with about 7 minutes left in the game where Lyles just started driving to the basket because they were worried about him kicking out to the corner, and no one came back to help, and he just had easy layups. And then it just started to snowball every single time. If you just put Hunter on him and say, guys, he's going to guard him, he's not going to get past you, and do whatever it takes, DeAndre, it changes the outlook of the whole game. And I don't know. There was no physicality from Virginia.
No.
There was nothing from Jack Salt. Isaiah Wilkins seemed a little bit out of it. He had that 1-3, and we were like, oh, my God. If Isaiah Wilkins is hitting 3, maybe we have a chance at a comeback. And then he came back down and was like, heat check. Let me take another one. It's like, no, that's not who you are. Why are you getting away from the plan? Why are you deviating right now and not in the right way? It's not like, let's speed this game up so we get more possessions. It was, let's just try to get this back in one single possession, like you were saying, the 15-pointer.
And I think that's the most frustrating thing, is because what makes you and I and we're not. First of all, I guess we should have started with this. There was no excuse for this.
No.
Tate and I are not defending Virginia in the slightest. This is embarrassing. Even if Kyle Guy was out and Ty Jerome were out, like, even if both those guys and Hunter were out, there's still no excuse for losing to Baltimore in a game like this. We're not saying that Virginia did not deserve, or that if
we're not making excuses for Virginia. We're basically saying the problem with what just happened, which is historic. This will go down as the greatest upset. I mean, this is
I like the
30
people
years, 40 years, 50 years, like people are going to remember this point in time, like what we do with Chaminade.
Right.
And
who did Chaminade beat?
I know, and that's the ooh, and that's the most gut-wrenching part of this whole thing. And I think that's where I feel like that's where I'm coming from with this whole situation. Where Tony Bennett, I mean, we say that we do the whole good guy thing, like. Yeah. This guy had the most it was the classiest post game you could ever see, and I know everyone's gonna freak out about like class, whatever. But sincerely, he was like, you step in the building, you have to deal with the consequences.
The arena,
you step in the arena, you have to deal with the consequences of what comes with that. And the way that Virginia handled themselves after the game, the way that you see Isaiah Wilkins, a guy that's been there for this entire run of Virginia basketball, getting to the top. You wanted to see this team finally get over the hump. You wanted to see this iteration of Virginia basketball do it, and that's where we're coming from. And but that's not to say that UMBC doesn't deserve this. Lyles is a guy who went to VCU and transfers and goes to UMBC, and Ryan Odom's a young coach, and they're making this whole thing happen. It goes both sides, but to see this Virginia team end it like this, it just feels too premature.
And that, I guess that was the point I was going to make, was that Virginia. The reason you and I appreciate Virginia. I think we get painted as Virginia fans because it just becomes this tug of war of where most people hate Virginia style of play. So by us liking it, we have to like really defend it because. But
we're put in that position.
Yeah, we're just put in that position. Like people were tweeting at me tonight. They're like, "Are you okay, Titus, that Virginia lost?" I'm like, of course. Like, Ohio State is playing tomorrow to go to the Sweet 16.
Yes,
like I don't give a shit about Virginia.
Yes. Meanwhile, all the Carolina fans are texting me like laughing out loud that Virginia was the first team to lose.
Come on. But I think the disappointing part for me is that Virginia. The reason I like them so much, or I enjoy watching them play, is how disciplined they are and how they have this style and how. They go into every game, and this you know what you're going to get, and it's just execute, and it's just like clinical how they go about their business. And whether you think that's boring or not, they don't get rattled by anything. They go into Durham, Cameron Indoor Stadium, in a huge game, and they just go about their business, and it's just like surgical how they approach the game. And tonight they were the complete opposite. They just got rattled, and it was jarring to see a team that you've watched all season just so poised in every environment. Just get rattled by a 16 seed.
It sort of looked like if you had like a private school and a public school in high school, and the private school has been playing in their private school league, and then they go play the public school at the public school, and they're just like they get hit in the mouth a little bit early, and they're like, wait a tick, like this isn't how this is supposed to go. Like they got hit in the mouth. I mean, UMBC was not afraid of them. They got in their grill. They hipped. I mean, everything that Virginia tries to do to everyone else, which is be physical, do the hand check thing, stuff like that. They were getting it back and more from UMBC. And as soon as shots weren't falling, it just continued to snowball. And
the best part about this though was all of the golden retriever pictures and gifs showing up on Twitter.
Great for the dog brand, yeah.
As an owner of 2 golden retrievers,
yes.
It just made my heart melt seeing all this happen. I was caught in the heat of the moment, and then I'd be like, "Oh, it's so cute."
Yeah, if you're one of those weirdos that has like a dog Instagram, this was a big night for you. This is a nice little like branding opportunity where you can get in there with UMBC.
This was great, the Goldens. So Tony Bennett. If you're a Virginia fan, we still love him. We still say, I mean, like, I'm not saying fire the guy. That's ridiculous. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're a Virginia fan, are you skeptical? Have you arrived at a point where you're like, I just don't think we can get it done with this system, with this guy? Are we worried about recruiting going forward? How is he going to get guys to play in this? You're not worried?
No, I don't think you're worried at all. I think there's a larger conversation to be had about where Virginia basketball, where they're cemented in the landscape of college basketball, which is they're the butt of the joke at this point.
Right.
With Chaminade, I mean, to have Ralph Sampson, who I could be convinced is the greatest college basketball player of all time, you could make that argument.
Right.
To have that in your arsenal, and then to have this new run in the 21st century where you have basically become the what everyone wants to be. It's like to have this young, great coach and to have this system in place.
Probably one of the 5 best programs in the last 5 years in the country. Yeah.
It's hard to argue against it. And to have this, and it all will be remembered as, oh, you lost to Chaminade, you lost to UMBC. Yeah. You're the first 1 seed to lose.
That's brutal.
For it to be broken down to that, I mean, that's what I feel for Virginia fans because they've been such a great program. I mean, the history alone, like Rick Carlisle played at Virginia, Like people forget that. Rick Carlisle is an amazing coach without, like they have so much history in basketball at Virginia and Charlottesville, and they love it so much. And it just
Malcolm Brogdon played there too.
Yeah, the president, the rookie of the year. And now we're at this point, and it just.
But that's the way it goes, man. Like March, this is how it works. Like you can do everything you want. You could go undefeated in regular season. It doesn't matter. You lose 1 game in March, and again, this is more than just losing one game. I don't mean to paint this as like, oh shoot, they lost in the Elite Eight by a last second shot or something. Like, this is embarrassing. This is humiliating. There's no excuse for this. But that's how it goes. Like, when people look back on this season, there's not a single person that's gonna go, dang, that Virginia team is pretty good. Like, they went 31-2 in the regular season, won the ACC regular season, won the ACC tournament. I mean, I've said before, this is a Duke year. Duke's going to win the national title. I think we all know deep in our hearts, Tate, that that's where this is going. And Virginia beat Duke. I mean, this was a very good team, and it's just but that's the way it goes, man. That's just like the system at play, and it's sort of frustrating for guys like us because we do watch college basketball all year, and most people just watch it in March, so they're just like, Virginia's trash. Get their record out of here. And it's like, listen,
it's like what they're like. What are you watching on?
Yeah.
This team is terrible.
How did
no
you
one
tell
can score on this team.
What do you mean you told me this team was good all year? It's like, I mean, they were 31-2 in the ACC. I'm not the crazy one for thinking that they were good, you know. So anyway, tough loss. Do you feel the sting as an ACC guy? Do you feel like this trickles down to Carolina, or you're not?
No, I'm just really excited for Jim Boeheim and what they were able to do tonight.
Yeah, big
defying all the odds.
If you
per
take
usual.
away the historic, embarrassing humiliation suffered at the hands of the regular season and conference and tournament champion in the ACC, if you remove that, the ACC actually had a pretty nice night.
That's pretty good night for Clemson.
Good job, ACC.
And, Florida State. I would say the worst part about that is like that would actually be best case scenario for Virginia if it was that small of a conversation that it was like this reflects badly on the ACC.
Yeah.
What I'm concerned with and what I think will be
Yeah.
what happens because of this situation is this will forever be tagged to Tony Bennett and will forever be tagged to Virginia basketball.
Rightfully so. I also am going to say that I'm out on Virginia next year. I'm gonna still defend how their style of play. I'm going to still defend. You know, I love Kyle Guy. Any Indiana Mr. Basketball that's playing college basketball has my full support. I will still enjoy watching Virginia play, but if you're asking me, will I believe in Virginia in the NCAA tournament? The answer is no. Until they give me a reason to. I'm going to say I'm out on them because I feel like this is going to happen again. Like, the psychological part, I think, actually matters more than I guess most people probably understand that matters, but like with college players especially, I think these guys that are going to come back, like Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome,
they'll never forget this.
They're not going to. Next year, Virginia goes 30-4, and they're a 2 seed. Like they're going to be sweating balls heading into the first round. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they play harder, play better. But if things start to go south, I think they're going to shit their pants again, and that part worries me for Virginia moving forward. It worries me for like Tony Bennett, like he's going to panic. Because again, like that, if Virginia just would have stuck with the system, I'm not saying it would have worked. Maybe Baltimore would have just kept raining threes and it would have still blown them out. But just to sort of see them say, "Ah, shit, we got to panic because it's the NCAA tournament. We can't lose to this team." And then at that point, you've just lost your total identity and everything that made you good. Because newsflash, Virginia was not good because they had super talented players. They were good because
of the system.
They all bought into the system and played well together. So as soon as you lose that, you lose to 16 seeds. Basically, is what we learned tonight.
And I will say, I do believe in redemption, and I say that sometimes, obviously, the night is darkest before dawn. I do believe that Tony Bennett, this is not the end of Tony Bennett. This is not the last time we will see Virginia be competing for a national title. And, just when North Carolina, when Chris Jenkins hit the shot in 2016, that whole team, when they went back and they all stayed that summer together. They all stayed in, and nobody went home. They all practiced all together that summer, and they were like, we have to get back because we have to win a national title. Like this cannot be, like I said for Virginia, this can't be tagged to us forever where every single time for the next 20 years I'm at home with my kids and I'm watching the NCAA tournament and it's Chris Jenkins spraying a shot in our face.
Right.
Like we have to have a second chapter of this so that we have something to put our, to say, hey, we were able to come back from this. And my hope, if you're Virginia, and this happens tonight, and I believe in Tony Bennett and the way he's able to get these guys to buy back in, I would hope that this is something that, guys, this is the worst case scenario. We played a guy, Lyles, who was an unbelievable scorer. We talked about Kimba guys. This guy looks like someone that could take, this team, who knows how far. I don't know how good he is. I mean, he looked unstoppable tonight in Kansas State. I mean, that's not an easy matchup, but you never know. And I scoffed at the thought that Kansas State would beat Creighton. I've been wrong in everything in this tournament, so definitely bet on Kansas State.
You totally called Marshall. Don't be so hard on yourself, Tate. You got one.
Thank you,
right
John Elmore. My God. He's the only one I have, John.
So if you're Tony Bennett, you basically you tell your team, like, we've already hit rock bottom. You can't get any worse. There's nothing worse.
Yes.
So now you have nothing when you go into the tournament next year, I guess. Yeah, it's a good point. You have nothing to worry about. Just go into the tournament next year.
This is the biggest fear of Virginia basketball, I think, honestly. Like, going into every single they've been a 1 seed, 2 of the past 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So
maybe
3 1 seeds, right? It might be 3 out of 4.
No, it's two of 3, I think.
2 of 3, but to be a 1 seed and be Virginia and to be the way that they play, everyone is in the game. That's the other thing that people were confused about with Virginia basketball. They're like, I thought these guys were going to blow them out. Like, that's not what Virginia does. Right. They keep you at bay. It's 8 to 10 points, but you don't have the possessions to keep up with them, and they play the clock so you don't have the possessions. That's why they're so great, because it's diabolical. It's a mind game.
Yes,
they are letting you creep up, but then they are like, okay, well, we need a 3 to keep them at bay. And tonight,
they got in their own minds.
They got in their own heads, and they completely lost it. And they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm down 14 right now. I haven't been down 14 all season. What do I do?
And we should make the point that narratives exist in March, and you have these thoughts about these coaches, about these programs, about these things, and all of them are fine and well, and they're helpful in filling out brackets. These fan bases are tortured. I can't pick XYZ to go here because I just don't trust. I don't trust Tony Bennett in March. I don't trust. That's all fine and well, and I'm not telling anybody to not do that, but I just want to mention that, like, these things also are not always, but oftentimes disproven. I mean, we were led to believe that Gonzaga will never make a Final Four. Mark Few just doesn't have it. Like that, you can't do that with the small. And they were 2 minutes away from winning the national championship. We were led Bo Ryan, who coached a similar style as Tony Bennett.
Yeah, it was a race to 50.
It was the same thing. They said the same thing about Bo Ryan. He's never going to go to the Final Four. He doesn't play the right brand of basketball. It's never going to work. And then he goes to 2 Final Fours and was also a couple minutes away from winning a national title. So all of these things exist all the way down the line. You said it about George, like a team like George Mason couldn't possibly go to the Final Four. A team like
VCU could not go to the Final Four.
A team like UConn that finished 9th in the Kimba year, they finished 9th in the Big East. There's no possible way a team like that could win a national championship. All these things are fine and well and true until they're not. And I think you and I assume we both agree that eventually, if Tony Bennett stays at Virginia, they keep churning out like 30-win, 25-win seasons.
It's gonna hit.
They're gonna go to the Final Four at some point. It is gonna work. It's just we might have to go through these growing pains before we get there. So.
And I do believe that this is. It obviously can't get any worse than this unless they were to lose to a 16 again as a 1 seed. And I mean, I don't want to put that pain on them, but I will say I don't think it can get any worse for this program. I think optimistically you have to look at the fact that Hunter is so good.
He's very good.
And he's an NBA prospect, and he meant so much to this team. And I think, if anything, tonight, I'm not saying that he swings the game in any way. I'm not saying that's the difference in the game. But to have a player like that coming back to your program means a lot. And to have Jerome and Guy and Hunter come back, I mean, there's reasons to be optimistic if you are a Virginia fan.
But the 16-1 happened. We've been waiting for this our whole lives.
It's the greatest upset in history.
It's so weird that people were like saying arguably at first. They're like, it's arguably the. At least that's what I saw.
It's
like,
1 in 135.
Yeah.
It's the greatest upset in history.
And it wasn't just an upset. They beat them by 20.
Yeah, it was a blowout.
It was an absolute blowout.
They scored 54 points. There were teams that did score 54 points on Virginia in 2 times that they played.
I've imagined. Yeah, this was the one time that anyone's ever scored 69 or more on Virginia. It never happened all season until tonight.
The freaking Retrievers did.
The Retrievers of Baltimore, not Duke, with at least 5 NBA players in their roster. Not North Carolina with like maybe 1 NBA player on their roster.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one.
maybe one. Not any of those ACC
Theo
teams.
Pinson.
It was Baltimore. So I envisioned this my entire life. I dreamed of one day seeing the 16-1. I never ever anticipated it looking like this, where it was like they just completely beat their ass from start to finish. You could have had someone who's never watched a second of college basketball watch that game and say which team was the 16-1, and they would have picked Baltimore as the one without even
thinking about it. Yeah. And that's to say, like, we've had these moments in the past with the 116. It's got to hurt if you're the 1987 Princeton team that almost beat Georgetown.
Yeah.
Because that's the one they always point to. They're like, remember that Princeton team? Remember that Princeton offense? They almost got him. They almost got Alonzo Mourning.
So do you think this opens the door? We're going to see more of this moving forward. We're going to see more 16s beating 1s. Because that sort of happened with the 2s and the 15s.
Yeah.
Like once that the 2s and the 15 happened. The one I remember was 2001 Hampton beat Iowa State. I think one might have happened before that even. So it had happened before, but like that recent there was like a recent wave where like Duke and Missouri and Michigan State, and it sort of like felt like now when I watch the tournament, every time a 2 seed's playing, it's not a guarantee. I'm like, oh, it could happen.
Well, how many games did we see today? I mean, Lipscomb against Carolina was hanging around.
So my question to you is, do you think moving forward, like next year, are 16 games going to now have your attention? Like it could have, like I've seen it happen. Do you think we're going to see another one in the next 5-6 years?
No, I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
I think that this was, I mean, I do think it's a mental hurdle to do this, but I think this was the perfect team. Like Ryan Odom, like Dave Odom is a guy that has been around basketball, like Wake Forest. He was under Terry Holland at Virginia. Ryan Odom has been around Virginia basketball. This is a weird situation where he has like a little bit of understanding, like who Tony Bennett is, what Virginia basketball is doing, understands the roots of Virginia basketball. He plays this team. This is a guy, Ryan Odom, that played at Hampton-Sydney in Virginia, who leads Hampton-Sydney in 3-point percentage. You know what I mean? A guy that values shooting threes, has a team that's orchestrating shooting threes. Like this was like everything worked perfectly for this team to be in this position. And Lyle should be at VCU with Shaka Smart coaching him right now. And now he's at UMBC with Odom, and they just beat a 1 seed. It all worked perfectly.
I'm going to clarify what Tate meant by that. Tate and I said that Shaka should never have left VCU.
Yes,
Texas. You know that he's not coach at VCU, but people are going to misunderstand.
No, I keep saying that Shaka should have stayed at VCU and had all these guys there.
So Virginia, historic upset. It was awesome. Don't let our tone as we're talking about this. I know we sound sad. Again, we're just like both of us are exhausted, and no one wants to hear us whine. So I'm not going to keep whining about how we're exhausted. We did like one video today, and I made a comment like, "Man, I'm just beat," and everyone's like, "Stop bitching, Titus."
Yeah.
So don't mistake our tone as like we're sad that Virginia lost. This was awesome. This was historic. I will never forget where I was when I saw this happen. All of that stuff was awesome. Before we go though, Tate, I want to mention this. Big winner tonight, other than Baltimore, is Sean Miller.
Yes. Great for Arizona basketball.
Great for Arizona
basketball. A players
basketball.
program. It worked out.
Big loser, Purdue, because they lose Isaac Haas, fractures his elbow. Very tough. I think Isaac Haas is the most valuable player. Isaac Haas is like the DeAndre Hunter of Purdue in the sense that he might not technically be the best player on the team, but he's like the one guy that makes them unique.
If you watch him play, he's the guy they have to have for him to be different. It's like Harms is great and fine. He's probably a better defender, quote unquote, but it doesn't matter. Isaac Haas, he's 7'8" or whatever he is. Like he's amazing.
So now Purdue goes from like a team that has this unique wrinkle of having just monster of a man down low to now
a literal monster.
To now they're just kind of like a good basketball team. And the same sort of thing with Virginia, where like Hunter made them like have this wrinkle, and then they went to just being a decent team. But Purdue, big loser, because I felt bad for Purdue. Everyone was like, "Man, sucks for Purdue. We feel bad." Now no one even gonna, no one feels bad for, or they just feel bad for the Virginia fan. I guess maybe they don't feel bad for the Virginia fan. Maybe they're just laughing. But that's kind of been lost in the shovel. So it's gonna be interesting what happens.
And I think that's probably the most ironic part about this podcast is that we are coming in from a situation where we think that everyone's gonna feel bad for this Virginia team.
Nobody feels bad.
Nobody feels bad. They're a 1 seed. And,
I don't understand why you don't feel bad. Like what has Virginia ever done to anybody? They're like non-threatening. If you think that they choke in the tournament every year, you should almost like not cheer for them, but like you shouldn't hate them. You should just be like,
I should be cackling. Why would I not be happy that Virginia lost? But I just say I've watched this team play all year, and that's the whole difference.
Well,
right
Virginia
now.
beats Carolina, so you should be happy. But yeah, like
someone
like me, like as an Ohio State fan, at what point in history has Virginia basketball ever like devastated my fandom of college basketball? Where I'm like, God, I hate these guys. How they just keep beating my team. How they keep winning national title. They're just non-threatening. So like I don't understand why people would hate them. It's just like. I mean, they're boring, sure. If you think they're boring, I guess there's that. But, yeah, Purdue loses this Harms. Shout out John Elmore.
Our guy.
Anything else we want to wrap up? There's
and
some
Dan D'Antoni, he's just had a great run. I feel like Marshall's not done. We get the Civil War. We get West Virginia Marshall.
Yeah.
To all our West Virginia listeners, we want to blow this out. I don't know how we're going to do this or what we're going to do, but I just want to watch this game. I wish we were in West Virginia to watch this game. I wish the game was being played in West Virginia. It should be because it's going to be unreal. We got Randy Moss versus Jerry West. We got Marshall versus West Virginia. This is going to be a showdown.
Randy Moss coming out of the woodwork probably.
Yeah.
Just show up at the game where Marshall stuff. Yeah.
Little country accent.
So overall, probably not a ton of madness today.
No.
But the madness we did get, historic madness. Virginia goes down. We're excited for the rest of this. I guess I also want to caution, like, we don't want too much madness because the more these upsets happen, they're awesome and all that stuff, but this always happens every year where you'll look up and you'll look at the Sweet 16 matchups and you're like, ugh, how did we get here where a 13 is playing a 12 or like a, if who does Kentucky's got tomorrow?
Buffalo.
So like Buffalo could play Baltimore County in the Sweet 16.
And we've watched every single Buffalo basketball game
And-
this season
yeah.
in detail.
But-
we've seen every game.
So everybody cheers for these upsets, and then you wake up, after it's all the dust settles, and you're looking forward to the Sweet 16. You're like, Buffalo, Baltimore County.
Yeah, you got to think about
Ugh.
what it means when it
Yeah.
waters down the whole tournament field. When we get down to the Elite Eight.
But we'll be here tomorrow. We'll do another pod tomorrow night. Yeah, I guess that's it. You got anything else before we go?
Sorry, Michael Porter Jr. That was an early exit.
Yeah, we didn't get to that.
The mystery has been solved. He is one and done officially out of the tournament, and hopefully he's going to the NBA.
Should we play the music one last time? Just
Yeah.
a ceremonial.
Just for old times.
Play the music, Kyle. So there it is. Michael Porter, rest in peace. Virginia basketball, rest in peace.
Tate Porter. What happened?
A lot of like things a lot of things we cover, a lot of things we get excited about. Rest in peace. Trae Young, right? This has been a tough go for us today.
Yeah, tough 2 days, but
We'll be back.
We have
We'll
the
regroup.
weekend ahead. We have St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. It'll be fun.
We'll regroup.
Kyle's excited. Kyle's ready for it. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with more pods. Until then, save the crew.